So again, thank you everybody for joining for our share out about the listening tour. So the report was crafted by your listening tour committee, and it was Lindsay Cox, Annie Schneider, Maeve Pullman, Tom Payer, Rachel Howes, Brent Litterer, Andrea Wieland, Laura Sleezer, who is from the Vermont NEA and has sort of been helping us with all this work, and myself. We began this work a few months ago, as we noticed, as everybody noticed, that the middle high school was in crisis. And really, the purpose of this tour was to hear from as many perspectives as we could across the district, so we could determine not just what those issues were, but fundamentally what is causing them. So during the listening tour, we interviewed your listening tour committee did 72 interviews, where we asked 3 questions, and I'm sure you remember those. The first was, what brings you joy in your job? And I think reading the responses to that was really beautiful. Obviously our students and each other, right? Like, I think we really have felt like through a very difficult time, we've been supporting each other, and that was really amazing to hear. The second question was, what is difficult in your job? And what is making your job difficult? And we heard there were a lot of reasons, but there were some things that came up again and again and again. Again, our job as the listening tour committee was to take these dozens of pages of transcripts of interviews and really compile them into this report that is really us saying what it is that we need. So I'm going to read from the findings of the report. Winooski Middle High School is in a state of crisis. A severe lack of trust and understanding permeates day-to-day operations, admin staff relationships, and the general student experience. While certainly exacerbated by the many challenges posed by the capital project, this discord exists beyond the scope of the construction work and will continue to persist after the last brick is laid, if not adequately addressed. The staff of Winooski Middle High School believes that the following improvement actions will set the district back on a path of coherence, cohesion, and success. It is important to note that these improvement actions should not exist as tasks isolated from the culture and climate of the school. In implementing these improvement actions, it should serve the leaders of this district well to engage in deep reflection and robust conversations with the staff and students regarding the state of affairs over the past 3 school years. So I'm going to start reading the improvement actions, and then I'm going to start passing it off to some other members of our listening tour committee. So the first improvement action, Kate and Jean will end the co-principal method of operations. Kate will be the middle school principal and Jean will be the high school principal. Something we saw again and again was the ambiguity around their roles made finding the person responsible for decisions and getting decisions made difficult, and it often felt like it was a way for administration to dodge responsibility for certain things. So we really feel like we need clarity in what our administrators' roles are. So that's our first. And then over the summer, Kate and Jean, each for the respective building and staff, will create systems for the following areas. Because again, one of the things we really noticed again and again was there were some broad failings in these systems of our school. So I'm going to pass it off to Andrea to talk about safety systems.
Yeah, sure. So thinking about hierarchy of needs, I think it makes sense to talk about safety first. So our request is that the administrative team examine, rebuild, and consistently follow all safety systems across the continuum from the physical plant concerns to having dedicated on-call tier 3 support at all times. And a transparent and proactive system for staff to relay concerns to the district safety team, as well as receiving timely feedback from them. And finally, we would request that the safety team provide weekly updates regarding their work and any information that we need to be able to safely do our jobs. Rationale behind that being that the listening tour found many staff reporting that they felt unsafe at work. and that when staff brought these concerns to administration, they were not taken seriously. Staff reported lack of systems around student safety as well, with things like fights, threats, and inconsistent enforcement of bullying policies, and those are mandated by the state. So some quotes that we used and left in the report for the admin team to see. Some quotes are: school safety is lacking. Jean and Kate treat staff with safety concerns like they are hysterical. We don't have an emergency number to call that someone consistently answers. Jean does not take safety concerns seriously and does not follow or support the safety practices of the district. Teachers feel unsafe, which affects them emotionally. Jean does not follow through with concerns. I don't want him to gaslight and don't need to hear his toxic positivity. I need him to run the school with safety in mind. We don't have systems to address bullying, fighting, and students threatening each other. I do not receive clear or timely information if there has been a student issue. I don't feel safe at work. We don't take threats seriously. Doors don't lock. Some classes don't even have doors. Some doors do not have handles. We do not have an emergency number to call that someone always answers. And then next up, someone will talk about student behavior as the second area of concern.
Yeah, so student behavior was another system that we felt not only was not working adequately, was either broken or non-existent. The systems in place are inadequate, inconsistent, and often applied arbitrarily. There's also often not the follow-up with staff after an incident, leading to safety concerns and feelings of often being undermined by administration. The systems in place have been constructed haphazardly, without our input, and have never been communicated clearly. We really feel like not only do we need a clear response to student behaviors, but we need very clear expectations that are uniformly applied across the building, and that is something that we have not gotten. Which leads to expectations being different from one classroom to the next, which is really difficult for people who work in different classrooms. We need common expectations for our hallways, for cell phones, and those need to be applied uniformly, and those need to be communicated clearly, and students need to be held accountable for those in a trauma-informed way. Some pull quotes from some of the interviews: systems for addressing student behavior are not in place. There are not consistent rules for the kids. Admin does not anticipate or respond to needs, only crises. I actually think that was a really important one. Right. Our systems are very reactive, and it is not meeting the needs of our students, and it is not meeting the needs of our school. I'm going to pass off to Brent, who is going to talk about communication.
Okay, so communication, honestly, we're asking for, thank you, Lindsay. We're asking for clear and consistent and transparent communication. I think everyone suggested there was just a lack of it. I think the rationale actually does a really good job of explaining where we are. The WA listening tour uncovered a troubling lack of communication with administration. The hope for communication is that it's timely, accurate, and reaches all of the necessary stakeholders. There's a lack of communication to our students and families from administration about systems. It's important to recognize that the mode of communication is vital, and both in-person and electronic means have a place in strong communication, yet one should not replace the other. Being cognizant of this and choosing the appropriate format is key. I'm just going to read like a quote or two here that I think really sum it up. One of them is, we've lost systems of communication. Faculty meetings are not consistent and they're too short. We are spread apart and we could lose our sense of community. And then another quote, there's a lack of clear engagement in communication. It's not clear who is driving the bus. We don't know who decides anything. No one knows what is going on. All the admin owns some of that. Communication would be the glue, but everyone is starting to drift apart and becoming tribal. Administration lacks the skills and tools to put goodwill into, or put goodwill into action. They do not advocate for the staff. So really just trying to make it clear that we need more communication. We need the right communication, and it needs to be transparent and timely. I'm also going to address the next section, special ed. We heard loud and clear from many of our teachers about basically a lack of understanding of special ed law. And it repeats every year, and it's not getting better. So we're requesting further training, particularly from Kathleen Blair, their colleague, to have more timely, or sorry, I'm on the wrong side, to build some systems that actually work for special educators. I think the quotes here are pretty stunning. Sometimes I feel like special education teachers do not carry the weight. Okay, do not carry the weight or have the value that a classroom teacher has. This needs to be addressed by administration. I would make it a point to have admin be mindful of that when they're planning. This need to be addressed through the administration. And then year after year of not understanding special ed laws by admin, they don't understand or consider it part of their jobs. They do understand how special ed works. Sorry, do not understand how special ed works. Some of the issues are legal, some are ethical, but they have neglected learning about this. And then one of the things we heard a lot from our instructional assistants, that, and we know how important they are in educating our kids, and they're often left out of the process here. And so just one quote is like, there's no clear expectations of our role as an IA, and there's little understanding of what an IA is supposed to be doing. Last one, and I just like this in general, I don't know if I'm supposed to go to staff meetings. So I think that's it a lot. Yeah, and next is professional development with Maeve.
Yes. Yep.
So from our staff as a whole, there was a request that we change the way we do professional development and reconnect it to staff and teacher needs, and rebuilding community, which is something that feels like has been lost. And then support staff training, professional development, there was a lot of quotes about that saying like, we're not being trained, even though we are often a direct instructional source for our students. So the rationale was that there's a feeling that our professional development is hierarchical, and disconnected from the needs have at our school, day-to-day needs. So some quotes that stood out is, again, from support staff: we are the direct instructional source for our students, but we don't receive training. And then in terms of professional development, we have so much expertise on our staff. We need more time working together that is not disruptive to kids and families. And again, that PD is also a misuse of time. We're not asked what we need, and it makes me resentful. There's no respect for those who've been around for a while. Sometimes we are trying new things that we've already tried before. Things get thrown out, but new systems don't replace it. So just in general with professional development, a feeling overall that it's not a good use of time right now, and there's many needs that could be brought into that time, and specifically all the asks that are being brought up in this document would be a good use of professional development time. Next is grading and reporting.
So for grading and reporting, our request is that the administration provide a clear and complete operational system for grading and reporting supported by an LMS. We heard about this from every single person that we interviewed. There is a lot of concerns and frustration about the lack of a grading and reporting system. Many reported that this led to a lack of academic rigor. There was confusion around GPs, GXs, and our curriculum alignment. A quote that most sums this up is, "I have no idea how students graduate." But more than that, the system of proficiencies is incomplete and inadequately understood in its most recent iteration. We're not able to draw a through line from what is being asked of us, instruction, grading, and reporting. It's unclear how to use the new and in progress proficiencies for formative or summative assessment. There's a deep chasm between what is being discussed at the administrative level and what teachers actually need to hold students accountable to rigorous standards in a proficiency system. Many express concerns with the lack of functional transcripts, pointing out that it's an equity issue. It disadvantages kids when they transfer or apply to college. It has been stated by Gene that there was not a transcript when he started in his role. However, MTC was being used, and now 3 years later, there's no progress or solution. Another area mentioned with regards to supporting students and holding them accountable is habits of work and learning. Any true proficiency-based system that helps us document student progress should include consistent methods for tracking and reporting out on habits. There's a lot of great quotes here and a lot of great things said. Grading system is a mess. GX-GP work felt like a waste of time. Teachers are asked to create systems as we go. If we ask for support or help, it gets put back on us instead of getting true support. So lots more to dive into.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, so we are asking for clear systems in all of those areas to be put into place. So our improvement action C is during pre-service, there will be one full staff session devoted to each of these 6 systems noted in action B. These sessions will succinctly introduce the elements of each system, including a timeline of implementation, professional learning, and communication to students and families throughout the 22-23 school year. During each session, Kate and Jean will solicit and listen to feedback, make revisions, and then bring a revised plan back so that we as a faculty can collectively agree to move forward. These sessions will be in person during contracted pre-service hours. Finding D, if requested and compensated, this team, the listening tour team, will meet with the middle high school principals to provide further context and support of the administration in fulfilling all of these actions. The support of the team will not be considered the will or consensus of the full staff in terms of reaching agreement for moving forward, as noted in action C. So in action C, we want the whole faculty's input on how these systems are going to be put into place and how they are created. And then E, in the 22-23 school year, we will have a leadership team or multiple teams. And I know we've heard about the instructional team. These teams need to be broader than just instructional teams. Multiple teams that utilize both paid after school time and release from a class or duty for team members. And this is how the leadership team used to function. This team or teams will continue the work in the 6 systems noted in action B, moving through a continuous improvement cycle to provide feedback and help make adjustments at multiple points throughout the year to ensure continued fidelity to implementation. So that's the summary of our listening tour report that we have given to administration. I think logical question is what's next, right? So this report is us collectively stating what we need. And in this report, we have a clear timeline for when we need to see certain things. As an association, we have power when we stand together. And now that we've collectively stated what we need to care for our students and to be healthy and safe ourselves, if administration cannot or will not remedy these things, we can speak together to demand that what we need. In the same way we came together around the RIFs, and we can continue escalating our pressure collectively even after. I just want to thank everyone on the listening tour committee. This has been there's been a lot of work put into the time taken to do these interviews. And again, I appreciate everybody who engaged in one of these interviews. And then the process of turning those dozens and dozens of pages of transcripts into this clearly articulated report. There was a lot of work that went into that. And I just want to thank everyone on the listening tour committee. And I'll give it time I'll open up to some questions if anybody has anything they'd like to ask to myself or anybody on the committee. I see Boone with a hand up. Yeah, Boone.
Hi, thanks for the report. It was super comprehensive. My only question is, Kate and Jean seem to have very different ideas about what clarity means compared to staff. So what is the plan for that, I guess? I just anticipate like they might think, oh, this is really clear, and we all know it's maybe not that clear.
I mean, it's going to be up to, I mean, we're going to be the ones holding them accountable for remedying these very clear problems, right? So if Kate's unclear on it, then that will be part of us deciding whether or not we need to escalate this, right? In the same way, when we felt like we weren't heard about the RIFs, we escalated to the board. That would probably be the next logical step. But yeah, we are, I think you can always reach out to anyone on the listening tour committee, and we're gonna follow up and see how many of these issues and how well they've been resolved. I don't know if anybody else on the listening tour committee wants to chime in on any of these questions, please do. Yeah, I see Nancy.
Hi, thank you. I have a couple questions. The first is, thank you for the very professional and very well thought out report. So I'm thinking about next steps, and I'm just really curious about if I'm trying to put myself into a person receiving this information, whose job it's been to be an administrator of and do all these things. And personally, I think I would submit my resignation. And I'm just wondering what we envision that I guess I don't want us to forget about the human part of delivering this information. And it's just kind of this gut reaction that I have, that and students and me, and sometimes you just don't want to be told what to do, and that it's really about collaboration. And so here's a report that we're telling them what to do, and it's beautifully written and it's well researched, and yet it still feels there's a feeling about it that that I hope that we could get to a point of collaboration. And this is just a concern I have, and I don't know the process for that. And the second one is, I'm glad you mentioned that we have lost all sort of voice in terms of systems, in terms of teachers giving input to administration around everything. Perhaps the listening tour committee is that committee to be an ongoing committee that works with administration in a collaborative way to move all of these forward. And I don't know, I was sort of mentioned, I don't know if that's the vision. And then finally, one thing that I didn't see that I'd like us to consider for committee structure is that why isn't there a teacher representative on the administration team that meets once a week? It seems that somebody from the listening tour could be that representative. That's where decisions are made. I read their minutes every time they come out, and there's discussions around things that I can't believe that they have knowledge of. And so I'm just wondering if that could be a recommendation, is that we look at who's on the administration team, which is called the leadership team. And I really would also, the third thing is just recommend us to think about different language around leadership, because I think there are people who don't serve on the teams that are leaders in their own ways. So I think naming is really important. And you notice that I did not say the leadership team referring to the administration team, because that denotes that they have power and leadership, and that if you're not on the team, you don't. So thank you.
No, thank you for those thoughts, Nancy. Yeah, I think one of the through lines here is that we feel that we're not included in a lot of those decision makings, and I think that's a great idea, having a teacher representative on the leadership team, the admin team. And then to your first point about, so we actually had just presented it to administration, and I think we were to frame it as, right, this is us saying what we need. And the first thing I said was that, I do believe that everyone in this room wants this to be a healthy and loving community. And, this is us collectively telling you what we need for that to be the case. right? Whether they can hear that and act productively on this report, I think, I am hopeful. And again, that work's going to be ongoing. But yeah, thank you again for those suggestions, Nancy. I see a question in room 205.
Yeah, hey Matt, we have 2 questions. McNally has one. I'm gonna have him come up and ask it, and Matt has one. I'm gonna have him come up and ask it so people can see and hear them.
I was just curious, what was the reaction on the part of the administration as you guys presented or went through this report?
That was also my question.
I mean, there wasn't a whole, again, we were framing the report just and presenting it to them as the committee. We tried to do some vibe reading. There were some stressed vibes. But again, Sean coming back from his sabbatical, he had some, he said some hopeful words. Again, I think it's going to come down to how they decide to react to this, right? Do they take this as some productive feedback? And I think they can't help to have seen that a lot of the issues that we've identified are actually issues, right? Like they can't pretend that those aren't actually issues, right? And this is us telling them what we need to be successful and giving them, telling them that these are some things that we think would work. And now it's in their court, and we'll see how they respond. But we're going to hold them accountable for fixing these things. And I don't know if anybody else wants to pop in there.
We have one other question in the room right now. Nellie.
My question is more about what the response, so some of us are going to SDI, and I'm wondering what our response should be. Say we're working with them one-on-one and they ask us questions, because clearly we have this unified front, and I want to make sure we're keeping this and it's not he said, she said.
Yeah, again, like this, we really did our best to make this sort of what everybody was feeling collectively. Again, it's going to be hard if they're trying to sort of split us out and getting us working against each other. And I think that's great to bring up, Nellie, something that we should be thinking of, right? Like we are in this together, right? Like we want to build this healthy, supportive, loving community. And there are some things that we need that are not in place for that. I think you can refer back to the, I don't know. It's going to be hard. Yeah.
So Brent and I just did a little conference just because I think that was a really great question. And for those people who are a little bit concerned about that, I think there's definitely 2 approaches. Like if you're comfortable having a conversation with one of the administrators about something they're asking, referencing your experience and wanting to provide feedback and what you've heard, like you should absolutely do that if that's a comfortable space for you, and you want to have that conversation. But if you feel like that's not a comfortable space for you, or the way that it was asked of you maybe didn't feel right, in the report, it very clearly says like the committee is very willing to come and meet with the administrators and collaborate and work on that with them over the summer. So I think that's another potential response is like, I know that was part of the report and I'm glad that you're asking questions about it. And I think maybe the best idea would be to reach out to the committee and meet with them over the summer. So hopefully between those 2 options, you'll find a space that feels comfortable.
Yeah, and if you get any questions that you feel uncomfortable about, feel free to pass it to anyone on the committee.
All right, we have one more question.
Yeah.
Hi. So mine's a little bit more about the reaction and like the layout of this meeting. So I have a few questions. I'm just gonna like list them off. So was it in person or was it on Zoom? Who was in the room or on the call? Was this read to them like you read it to us? And did they say anything after? Thank you.
Yeah. So we met in room 216. And it was on the listening tour, it was myself, Lindsay, Brent, Rachel, and Tom. And then on the admin side, it was Kate, Jean, Sean, and Sarah Haven, who's the new HR person this year. And again, we were sitting around a table. Again, the intention of this was I was framing the report. We gave them physical printed copies of the report. I read the findings and then the action items. Didn't read through the whole report. Sean clearly didn't want anybody else asking questions, and and I think our intention was to give them time to sort of process it. I think again, if we were to try to talk through it right then, I felt like natural reaction would be for Kate and Jean to get very defensive, and we're hoping that again we frame it, we hand it off to them, they can process it and come back in a productive way. And Sean did he thanked us for giving the report. And so it felt the words spoken were positive. I think there definitely was some tension in the room that was undeniable, and I as I think Nellie had said, I think it is a hard thing to hear, to be given critical feedback, which in many ways this is for them.
All right, we're all good here, Matt, if no one else has any questions on the Zoom.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't see any in the chat. No friends. Again, you should have a copy of the full report in your email right now. And I'm going to share out the recording of this meeting with everybody. Feel free to reach out to any questions, and we're so close. We're almost there. So have a wonderful evening, everybody, and see y'all tomorrow. We got one more.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Lindsay.